It started off as a regular Saturday morning, the kind where the sunlight filters through the kitchen window just right, and the coffee smells a little stronger than usual. I was halfway through my second cup, watching the steam curl into the air, when I looked over at my son, Tyler. He was seated at the kitchen table, quietly eating his cereal, eyes fixed on something only he could see. There was a stillness to him that didn't sit right with me, not like a teenager sulking or zoning out, but something deeper. Focused. Waiting. Tyler had always been a quiet kid. Thoughtful, polite, maybe even a little too serious for a 15-year-old. He wasn't into sports like his older brother had been, nor did he hang around town with a big group of friends. He kept to himself mostly, buried in books or sketching in his worn leather-bound notebook, the kind with a broken spine and pages that had begun to curl. But that morning, something about him seemed different. He wasn't sketching. He wasn't fidgeting with his spoon. He was just watching, silent and still. "I'll be heading out in a bit," I said, trying to break the silence. "Your dad's got that hardware store run, and I'm going with him. You want to come?" Tyler blinked and turned toward me slowly, as if surfacing from deep underwater. "No, I've got some homework," he replied, his voice flat. I smiled and ruffled his hair, though he didn't respond to the gesture. Just nodded once and went back to his cereal. We left about an hour later. My husband, Rick, double-checked the front door lock like he always did and muttered something about replacing the faucet in the upstairs bathroom. I glanced back at the house as we pulled out of the driveway and saw the living room curtains shift slightly. Tyler must have been watching from behind them. It wasn't until later that I'd realized the weight of that image. The errand took longer than we planned. Traffic was worse than usual, and the hardware store had a line out the door. We picked up lunch on the way home, laughing in the car over some song playing on the radio. It was a good day. It felt normal. Until we pulled into the driveway. The front door was slightly ajar. Rick noticed it first. He put the truck in park and stepped out cautiously. I followed, a pit starting to grow in my stomach. Something was off. "Tyler," Rick called as he pushed the door open all the way. "You okay, bud?" No answer. The house was quiet. Not the kind of quiet you get when someone's napping or listening to music through headphones. This was the thick, suffocating kind. We moved through the hallway and into the living room, where everything looked untouched. No sign of struggle. No mess. Just silence. I went upstairs to check his room. The door was closed, but not locked. I knocked gently. "Tyler. It's Mom. We're back." Still nothing. I opened the door slowly. His room was empty. But it wasn't just that he wasn't in it, it was what was left behind. His sketchbook was gone. So was the small duffel bag he used for sleepovers or weekend trips. The drawer where he kept his chargers and notebooks was half open, cords missing. On his desk, there was a single sheet of paper. My heart clenched as I walked over and picked it up. It wasn't a note. It was a drawing. A sketch of our house, drawn in incredible detail, except it was on fire. Flames curled out of the windows. Smoke billowed into the sky. And in the front yard stood a small figure with no face, holding what looked like a gas can in one hand and a match in the other. I called Rick upstairs. He stared at the drawing, then at me. "We need to find him," he said, already pulling out his phone. We reported Tyler missing within the hour. Police arrived, asked questions, searched the house. They didn't treat it like a kidnapping, there was no forced entry, no signs of struggle, and the sketchbook missing suggested he left willingly. But that didn't make it easier. Something about that drawing haunted me. I couldn't sleep that night, and neither could Rick. Days passed. No word from Tyler. No texts, no social media activity, no transactions on his bank card. It was like he vanished into thin air. But then, exactly 7 days after he disappeared, a package arrived on our doorstep. It was addressed to me. No return address. The handwriting was Tyler's. Inside was a flash drive and a small slip of paper with 3 words, "Watch this alone." I did. Rick was at work. I closed the blinds, locked the doors, and plugged the drive into my laptop. There was only one file, a video. I clicked play. Tyler's face filled the screen. He was in a room I didn't recognize, bare walls, dim light, concrete floor. He looked thinner, like he hadn't been eating. But his eyes, they were more alive than I'd seen in years. "Hi, Mom," he said. "If you're seeing this, it means I did what I needed to do." He paused, inhaled sharply. "I know this doesn't make sense. But I need you to listen." Over the next 15 minutes, Tyler explained everything. He talked about how he'd been seeing things he couldn't explain. Shadows that didn't move with the light. Whispers in the walls. Faces behind mirrors. At first, he thought he was going crazy. He didn't want to scare us, so he kept it to himself. But then he found something online, in a forgotten forum buried under layers of encryption. A place where people talked about what he was experiencing. They called it the thinning. He showed pages from his sketchbook, scanned into the video drawings of strange symbols, maps, coordinates, and timelines. He claimed that our house was a focal point, a kind of beacon for something that existed between worlds. And he believed it was targeting him because he was sensitive to it. That's why he waited until we were gone. So he could act. He didn't say exactly what he'd done, only that he needed to seal the rift and that once it was done, he wouldn't be able to come back. Not yet. He ended the video with a message that still echoes in my head. I didn't run away. I stepped into something bigger. I just hope one day you'll understand why. I sat in that chair for hours, staring at the screen, replaying his words. The police didn't believe the video. They said it was the work of an imaginative, troubled teen. That he'd fabricated it all. Maybe he joined some group. Maybe he just didn't want to be found. But I knew better. Rick didn't want to talk about it. He packed up Tyler's room a week later, unable to look at the empty bed. But I didn't. I kept the room exactly the way it was. Then, last week, nearly a year after Tyler disappeared, I found something strange. I'd gone into his room to dust. The closet door was slightly open. And inside, on the floor, was his sketchbook. I opened it slowly. Every page was filled with new drawings. Not the old ones. These were fresh. Detailed. Dated. Some were landscapes of places I didn't recognize. Others were strange creatures, symbols, or diagrams of what looked like machines or portals. At the very back was a note in his handwriting. "I'm okay. I'm close. Don't stop believing in me." And below that, a single line. "The house is no longer a beacon. You're safe." I don't know how it got there. But I do know this: my son didn't leave because he was lost. He left because he found something. And someday, I believe, he'll come home.